So today we're going to cover converting quadratics, and what that means is that we are going to be changing from one form to another. So what I have for us to do today is to make one of our little flip books again. So you're going to need 3 sheets of white paper, and if you remember how we made this before, we're going to stagger the 3 sheets of paper. And maybe I can do it, maybe I can't. So we're going to stagger the 3 sheets of paper just slightly. And then once you get them how you like them, which I seem to be struggling with right now, and you don't want to make the individual steps too big. So like something like that is plenty big. And usually in general I say like a finger width is good for each tab. So once you have your 3 pieces, then what you're going to do is take it and fold it down from the top, and then you should end up with 6 different tabs. And again, you know, just straighten them out however you need to. And then there are some staplers, so just take a stapler. Sorry, had to get a stapler myself. And then I'm going to staple a little piece on at each end. All right, and then this is how you need to label your tabs. So I'm going to ask you to just pause the video so that you can get your paper set up. Now that we're ready to start, I'm going to just ask you to pause the video as you need to. I'm not going to remake my flip chart. I am going to do the examples with you, but just to get your flip chart made. So this is on the sheet, the page that says standard form. So if you flip your top page up, I'm writing on the sheet of paper that says standard form. So this is what standard form of a quadratic equation looks like. It's ax squared plus bx plus c, and we are going to have this equal to y. And on a lot of these problems, we're going to kind of leave this off and just work with the bulk of our trinomial, and then at the end, we'll just write our answer as y equals blah, blah, blah. So remember that the only condition on this is that we have to have an x squared term, so this can't be 0. But we could be missing the middle, we could be missing yen, that would be fine. All right, so to get standard form, and if you need to, pause the video so that you can keep up. So to get standard form, the first thing that you're going to do is FOIL. All right, so you want to get this. So you want your answer in this form. So the first thing that you're going to have to do is FOIL. Once you're done foiling, you need to distribute if there's a GCF out in front, and then you're going to combine like terms. So to get standard form is pretty easy. It's basically just multiplying everything back together. So if you think of how we've been factoring things, you're just going to FOIL those binomials together, distribute the GCF if there is one, and then combine any like terms, and that takes care of standard form. So if you need to pause the video to get this written down, please do. All right, the next tab is Intercept Form. So if you lift up that for standard form, Intercept Form is basically your factored form, or if you want to think about when we were saying we were making a FOIL problem, this is when you have your GCF out in front, and then you have your 2 binomial factors that you're multiplied together. So intercept form and factored form are basically the same thing. So I put AKA, which hopefully you know stands for also known as factored form. So this is the form you have when you have factored your trinomial. All right. So if you want to get your equation into this form, to get intercept form, first thing you have to do is start with standard form. So that means you have to basically get ready to factor. And then you're going to factor. And that's it for intercept form. So if you want intercept form, which is factored form, then you have to start with your standard form and just go through the steps of factoring. So remember, that means check for GCF first. If there isn't a GCF, that's fine. Then you just keep going. If it's 3 terms, you're going to factor it like a trinomial. If it's 4 terms, you would do grouping. If it was difference of squares, you would split those up. So you're going to factor like you normally would. Again, if you need to pause the video, please do. The next form that we have, which is your next tab, is Vertex Form. And Vertex Form, is going to be a little new to you. This is what Vertex Form looks like. And all of this is going to make great sense when we go to graph. But this is what Vertex Form is. So this is your GCF out here. This is x minus h. So this is, well, I might go ahead and spoil it. This is what we get when we do completing this square. So if you look at this is normally what we have on completing this square, except we have an equal sign right here. So these are going to come out of completing the square, which is part of the process. So to get vertex form, you're going to start with standard form. We always start with standard form. And then the only other one would be if you wanted standard form, but you always have to start with standard form. And then we're going to complete the square almost. And that will make more sense in just a few minutes when we go to do an example. But we're not solving, we're just trying to write it in a different equation form. So we're not going to completely complete the square. We're going to go through most of the process. And then at the end, we're going to move the k back over. And again, this will make sense in just a few minutes when we go to do some examples. All right, so again, if you need to pause the video, please do. All right, so now we're going to go to examples. So I'm going to go to my new flip chart here, and I'm going to start on, if I can, on the first examples page. And my thought is to do 2 examples on each page. So this is the first sheet, and at the bottom, I'll move it up so you can see what I'm doing here. This is the first examples page. So for our first example, so example number 1, 2n squared minus 7 equals 13n. And let's write this, or change this to standard form. Sorry, this is in standard form. So I just messed this up. Sorry, hold on a second. This is standard form. And let's change this to intercept form. So change to intercept form. So my first question was going to ask you what form this is in, and then I ruined it, of course. But this is in standard form, and basically the way we can tell is when our quadratic is in standard form, there's no parentheses. When our quadratic is in intercept form, we'll have 2 sets of parentheses. And when our quadratic is in vertex form, we'll have 1 set of parentheses, and they'll be squared. So since this has no parentheses, I know this is in standard form. So what we want to do is change this to intercept form. So if we go to our flip chart, if we want intercept form, we need to start with standard form and then factor. So to get intercept form, all we have to do is factor. So I'm going to move everything over to the left side. So that will give us 2n squared minus 13n minus 7. And then all we need to do here is factor. So I look for a GCF. I don't see one. This is a trinomial with a leading coefficient. So if we want to do this, we need to multiply to get a negative 14, but combine to get a negative 13. So I'm thinking we can do that with negative 14 and positive 1. So then we split that up. We can reduce that to negative 7. So it looks like n minus 7 would be one of our factors, and then the other one would be 2n plus 1. And we could check it by foiling it back together, but that's our factored form, so here is intercept form. So to get intercept form, all we have to do is factor. So we started with standard form, we changed it to intercept form. All right, for example 2. All right, I'm going to try and not mess this up and give you the answer here. So example 2, I'm going to give you this. All right, so I want you to think for a second what form this is in. And again, just to refresh your memory, standard form has no parentheses. Factored form will have 2 sets of parentheses. Vertex form will have 1 set of parentheses squared. So when we look at this one, we can tell that right now, this one is in vertex form. So we're starting in vertex form. All right, so for this problem, let's change to standard form. So change to, yikes, standard form. All right, so if we get our flip chart, we want standard form. So we're going to look on our flip chart under standard form. All right, so to get standard form, first we have to FOIL, then we have to distribute, and then we have to combine like terms. So FOIL, distribute, combine like terms. So basically what we're doing is getting rid of the parentheses. All right, so first thing that we need to do is to FOIL this x minus 1 squared. So basically, I'm going to write it out like this. We need to do x minus 1 times x minus 1. Then we'll distribute the 2, and then we'll add the 7. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is FOIL this together. So I'm going to ignore this right here. If I FOIL this, that would be x squared. On the inside, if I put together the O and the I, that will be negative 2x. And then last will be a plus 1. So when I FOIL those two, I get this. So now I'm going to bring the rest of my stuff down. All right. Now, step 2 said distribute, so I need to distribute the 2. So that's going to be 2x squared minus 4x plus 2, and then plus 7. And then the last thing I need to do is combine like terms. So I've got like terms right here at the end. So y equals 2x squared minus 4x plus 9. And that is standard form. So standard form has no parentheses, factored form will have 2 sets, and vertex form will have 1 set squared. So there is the example of changing from vertex form into standard form. All right, so at this time I'm going to pause the video so that I won't get cut off. So I'll pick up on the last 2 examples in the next video.